Test, test. There we go. How's that? Can you hear me now? Chaotic Peace. That's Woody. Hey, Woody. How about now? Can you hear me? How we doing? Ah, there we go. Okay, chicken dinner. Winner, chicken dinner. I'll get this out. All right. Let me go back to full face here. So it's been an interesting week. We did a lot of work on the Epic Build Music extension. I should introduce myself. Let me start over. How you doing? My name's Jeff. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining me. I'm a program manager at Microsoft. I work on .NET, but this isn't a Microsoft stream. This isn't a Microsoft thing. This is me. I want to talk to you, show you some of the things that I'm working on in open source, and also take a look at some of the things that are interesting to me. And eventually, and I've just upgraded some hardware, we're going to start doing some interviews. We'll talk to some folks, and we'll start interviewing people live here on the stream. Everything is simulcast to Twitch and Mixer, and afterwards you can pick up and you can review the videos on YouTube on my channel over there, and I'll write up a little summary and you'll see it over on my blog. So lots of places that you can get in. You can find this content after the fact if you aren't able to make it 10 a.m. East Coast time on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I'm still tinkering with the idea of doing like a Wednesday night stream at like 9 p.m. I've heard from a couple folks that are night owls. They'd like to see a later stream, so I might work that one in. So I normally broadcast with my Lenovo Ultrabook here. Now, an Ultrabook doesn't typically have the best video card, and that's why we have a little bit downscaled video here. It's 720p. It's not high def, but I just upgraded my hardware here. I'm not broadcasting from it yet, but I have a Surface Book 2 fully loaded 15-inch. It's got all the bells and whistles, and we're going to be trying to use that going forward, starting with the stream on Tuesday. And I think, because I've got it fully loaded with the big video card, we're going to be able to do all the cool things with interviewing. So I think we're going to be able to solve that issue we had with Skype and trying to interview my friend John Galloway. So that's the first bit of housekeeping. So I'm going to be dropping that in here over the next little bit. Second piece, I did a release on, a preview release I called it, on Epic Build Music, the current project that I'm working on. That's a completely open source extension for Visual Studio that's meant to add some fun into your build process, your daily, day-to-day coding. You can find that on the GitHub site under releases. I'll show you that right now. There we go, cutting over. So this is github.com. See, and you can't even see it up here. It's github.com/C#Fritz. Epic Build Music, you can see where we are here, and there's one release. This is what we finished on Thursday, the first pre-release. You can download and try the V6 right now, and by default, it plays those modem tones when you start, when you build your application, whatever application it is. And there is an options dialog in there, so you can change out that build music. So that kind of brings us up to date here with everything and where we are with the test project that we've been working on. Now, how's the music in the background? It's a little bit too high. I adjusted it a little bit here, and I want to make sure that it's not too loud. It's not drowning me out here. I think I even need to turn it down just a little bit. But this is Music to Code By from my friend Carl Franklin. Cool, it's not drowning me out. This song is called Cyan. It's from his third album of Music to Code By. You can get this, of course, from mtcb.pwop.com, or you can check out his new app, Music to Flow By, for iOS and Android, and you get some free music just for downloading that app. When you subscribe, you'll get a new song just like this every month. All right, so I've got a free license to be able to broadcast that on the stream. I want to make sure that Carl gets his credit. So, thanks to the followers here, we got a couple more followers coming in. You can see the follower count across the top here using the little gadgets that I brought in from from Streamlabs. And of course, as you saw right when we started off here, off to the side, we'll have some alerts, some viewer notices when new folks join us here on the stream. Last bit of housekeeping. I want to try and encourage you to spread the word about the stream here. I want to push, and I'm going to do a little bit more with it. So what I've done, and I'm going to announce it in the blog post wrap up also, I dropped a line on Twitter about this. When we cross, I believe the number is 500 followers on the stream. I've set a goal, 500 followers on the Twitch stream. Now, Mixer, will see folks come on in that. My problem is I'm seeing the same folks right now on both Twitch and Mixer. But when we cross 500 followers on Twitch, I'm going to host an 8-hour ASP.NET Core workshop. Completely free. Anybody can come and join it. It will not be recorded, because this is the same workshop that I also present at some other events. But if you want to learn a lot about ASP.NET Core, if you want to walk through it, you want to learn it from the team, we reach 500 followers, and I will run that 8-hour workshop here live on stream for everybody to watch and hopefully learn a couple things from. So you have that to look forward to spread the word, and we'll try and build an audience here. I also set a goal for 1,000 followers. If we reach 1,000 followers, I'll run a stream. I'm not sure quite how long yet, but I will run a Solve Your Problem stream. I'll have you on as guests. You, my followers, can be guests, and I'll schedule you to come on, ask a question with some code that you need some help with, and we'll solve it together here live on stream. So a couple of goals there that we can set up and go after. I hope they're compelling to you. I hope you're interested in it. So 8-hour live workshop here on stream, learning ASP.NET Core, if we reach just 500 followers. And I have some ideas for even further goals. As we get the interviews up and running, I know a couple people that might be interesting to have on and do interviews with. I'll talk to them, and once I have those interviews lined up and working properly, I'll schedule them, and maybe they appear as further goals out there in the list. So that's what we're talking about. That's what we have now. Fritz Epic Build Music is our test project, is where we're working. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. Last piece of housekeeping. Hats, right? Hats. Every time I start a stream, I talk about hats. I wear a different hat every time we stream. Today's hat this is the Philadelphia Soul hat, right? Now, what the heck is that? This is an arena football team. If you're not familiar with arena football is American football played on an AstroTurf surface in an ice hockey rink. They leave the walls up, they take the glass down, they put padding over the walls, but they play football on a much shorter field. It's actually only 50 yards long, smaller end zones. You can learn more about it if you go to arenafootball.com, but Philadelphia Soul, that's my local team. And this hat is from the inaugural season. I was an inaugural season ticket holder. Actually, I think I was season ticket holder number 3. I was a huge fan of arena football through college. I know it sounds weird, right? A fan of arena football. Follow me here. So I was really into it. I enjoyed watching it on TV, and I thought, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great if we got a team? And I heard rumors that Ron Jaworski, the quarterback from the Philadelphia Eagles, the former quarterback and an analyst on ESPN, was applying to find a team. And I started snooping around, and I knew that when sports teams are going to be announced, they're going to file trademark applications. So I started watching the trademark office, and I started watching to see if there were things filed by things called Philadelphia football, right? Or, right, Philadelphia Arena football, something like that. And I saw an application come in, and as soon as I saw it come in, of course it had a phone number and an address that was registered with it, because there has to be a business attached to own that. I saw that application, and I called the phone number, and I asked about season tickets. And they were dumbfounded that I found them and was asking for season tickets already, because they hadn't even announced a team yet, or even the intention of a team. And here's this guy calling to get season tickets. and they put me on the list. Sure enough, they called me back a few weeks later after they announced the team, and I was a season ticket holder from the get-go. I'm not currently a season ticket holder. The arena football went dormant for a year, came back. The Soul, they're back. But this is from the inaugural season. It's got an inaugural season patch on the back here. And this is actually even more unique. This hat isn't even the Soul's gray, okay? Soul wears a gray helmet, and actually you might be able to see it there over my shoulder. I have a Soul helmet back there, signed by the original owner, John Bon Jovi. I know, rock stars typically sign records, CDs, these things. I've got one signing a football helmet. It's a real football helmet, trust me, and it's got his signature on it. But so the first, and you can see it's a dark gray, and this is a very light gray, almost silver. The first night of that, they introduced the team to the season ticket holders, to VIPs. They sold hats, they sold some t-shirts, and it was not the right color. And they didn't know it was the right color until after they started opening the boxes and selling things. So they sold them anyway. So this is actually unique, one night only sale that was sold that first night, and it's the light gray. So I'm kind of proud of it. I like to keep, I don't typically wear it. I keep it on a nice shelf because it reminds me of my commitment to that team. Mud Diver over on Mixer says, arena football is awesome, nothing to be ashamed of. Oh, I'm not ashamed. I'm just making sure that folks who know that I also enjoy the NFL and on the big field outside, that I know we're on a smaller field there indoors. So I'm also wondering about the Saturday morning stream here. The number of viewers that we have on Saturday morning, nowhere near as many as we've had during the week. So might need to shift up the schedule here a little bit. All right. And actually, I'm not seeing... Oh, there we go. There's Bruno having lunch and watching. It's 1:20 in the afternoon in Brazil. Cool. Thanks for joining me, Bruno. All the way from Brazil. All right. Excuse me. Okay. I see 5 followers over here on Twitch on my console. Nope, down to 3. And then the counter up above is off a little bit. And let's see, over here on Mixer. Ooh, let me pause that. I don't want Mixer going. Yeah, I've got a couple followers watching over there. All right. I'm going to retweet some of these. Cool. And Woody, we can talk offline a little bit about what you want to do as far as a Twitch channel, doing live coding here. So let's get into the project. We've done all that housekeeping. Let's get into this. There's a lot to see and do. We left off on Thursday starting refactoring the extension. Okay, I had been coding and writing this extension all in Visual Studio, all debugging and hooking directly into our experimental instance of Visual Studio, and it made my debugging, my testing and code writing experience really long and painful to do. So let's start off by taking a look at our issues. I want to see if there's any comments or anything in here, and I don't see any new comments, new issues that are opened here. I still have this one down here from Smudge suggesting some C# improvements. You know what? Let's see if we can take this change that he's suggesting. So I'm going to go into Visual Studio and let me open up our project. I've also applied. There was see, look at that. There was a patch release that was issued this week, a bug fix release that was issued to Visual Studio. I applied that, hoping to clear up some of the issues that I was having. I don't think it targets any of the things that I was running into with Visual Studio. Now, the other thing that I do want to point out, I was trying to use Karnak in the middle of Karnak keys in the middle of our stream on Thursday, and so that you can see some of the hotkeys that I'm clicking as I'm navigating around here. And the solution, the project there, I think I know what's going on there. I think that might be a good stream for me to revisit here on Tuesday and actually go through and do that fix here live on stream. So the challenge there is Karnak keys is written in WPF, and I don't know WPF. I'm not a WPF person. So maybe we'll do some WPF programming and learn a little bit about that on Tuesday here on the stream. All right. Let's take a look at what Smudge had suggested here. And oh, I love the Gremlin profile pic. Nice job there, Smudge. All right, so SBM equals service provider. So he's suggesting let's use the null propagation operator here, right? So null propagation is the question mark period operator that you can use in C#7. So he's looking at this SBM and he's using the question mark period right here in order to say if it isn't null, fire this method. That kind of makes sense. Where the way that my code is written now, right? I've got this gets right. Is this where he's talking about right here? Solution, right? I'm get solution build manager. He's looking right here and suggesting that we could dramatically simplify this. I think he's right. If we just delete this line, delete that, scoot that back over, and let's do that. And that should still work here for me, so I will just build and make sure that it builds. Check digits. Using a different machine today, and only just worked out how to turn the chat on. Welcome back, Check Digits. And I'm right, for those of you who haven't joined us, I'm going to mostly use your handles here when I talk to you in chat. Just because I don't know if you want me to use your real names. But welcome back, Check Digits. Thanks so much for your contributions. Sending over our default music file. So it looks like the build succeeded, so I think this is a good fix that we can put in place. I'm going to commit that change and mark it here, and then close out that issue suggesting we use the null propagation. There we go. So let me go over to Fritz Epic Build Music, just verify that I modified our manifest file. Let me come back to show you what I did there in a second. So Fritz Epic Build Music. Oh, wrong slash. Nope, wrong one. Not build over dial up, but build music package. All right. Git commit. I'm a little congested here, excuse me. This is number 10. Excuse me. Introduce that operator to make code cleaner as suggested in number 10, right? So I can reference the issue number here, and in my commit, when I push it up, it will be it'll be marked inside of GitHub, and they'll actually be linked together. So let me do that git push. Good. And if I refresh this page, you should see the commit is referenced. There we go. So I'm just going to close the issue because I now have it addressed. All right, cool. Now, I'm not going to go into any of these other ones just yet, because I want to go through and work on my refactoring around optimizing my development process here. And I also wanted to show you what I did to that v6 manifest. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with writing extensions, there's this manifest file. And this is the file that notifies the Visual Studio Marketplace and Visual Studio exactly what this extension is. And I have some very simple information logged in here, including the version number, this 0.2 version number that I'm currently working with. And I put in a link for more info to our GitHub repository. There's our license. I'm just using the default icon that comes with the Visual Studio template at this point. We need to replace that. We need to get some real artwork in here at some point. And there's also a place here we can put a preview image. We could put some tags. I'm not quite sure what I should put there. And even some release notes. And I don't know the format of release notes yet. We're going to have to do a little bit of research, figure out what format that is, because when I do publish to the Visual Studio Marketplace, when I'm comfortable that this is ready for the open internet to start using, I want to have good release notes entered in here. Some of the other things that we have here: install targets. It runs on at least Visual Studio Community version 15. 15 is the version number that corresponds to Visual Studio 2017. Assets. I'm not quite sure what this is, but this is the project that's being included. Dependencies, we do depend on .NET Framework, at least .NET 4.5. .NET 4.5, I believe, shipped with Windows 8? Or one of the late Windows 7 service packs, I forget which one. So as long as you're running a supported version of Windows 7 or later, you should have the appropriate versions of the .NET Framework on your system. And prerequisites, you need to have the Visual Studio Core Editor 15 up to version 16. 16 hasn't been released yet, so that's why it has the parentheses there instead of the square bracket. Square bracket says include version 15, parentheses says up to, but not including. Alright, so that's what's in my manifest. Excuse me. So let me get that into the mix here. And is it? You know what? I don't even need to do an ad, do I? Right. If that's my only file, I can just do a commit A, right? And then defined new fields for our manifest. Manifest. Cool. All right, let me push that up so it's in my dev, and that's all in my dev branch, all backed up. Cool. All right. Let's get back to refactoring now. See, I'm like unwinding in my mind. My wife swears I have ADHD, you know, because it's bouncing back and forth, identifying these things. Cool. All right. Just taking a peek at Twitter real quick. Okay, cool. I hope you guys are enjoying the music. I like this music because it's real chill, just kind of nice in the background and keeps us focused, which is kind of the antithesis of what I was just saying, right? About how I easily get distracted and I bounce back and forth on these things. It's like my mind has its own call stack and I'm constantly unwinding. You know what I mean? Unit testing, refactoring this extension. So I think, and the comment that we got, I can't remember who it was. You don't even hear the music. You don't hear the music. Inconceivable. Let me know when you start hearing it. There we go. Check digits can hear it. Is it too loud? How are we doing? Is that all right? What do you think? I have headphones. Well then. Ah, there you go. You can hear it now. All right. It's been playing all the time. Oh, I'm so congested. Oh my gosh. A little loud now. See that? See that? This. Back this off just a little bit. See, I've got groove music here. There it is, cyan. What do you think? How are we doing now? Clearly, I have better speakers. That's good. That's good. Turn it down for the crowd. All right, I think I turned it down a little bit here. I could turn it down just a little bit more. How's that? Are we good there? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's better. All right. Cool. Let's get into this now. So I started refactoring out. I had everything living in this build music package class, right? And this package class is the core class. This is where I'm hooking up to my Visual Studio Build events. And I wrote a little blog post about how this is structured. You can find it over there on my blog. And I've got my blog there up on the header bar, jeffreyfritz.com. So you can go find that. So I wrote up a little bit about how this works, how these events are all hooked up here. And right now, most of these things, the event listener's just saying, I'm not doing anything, it's okay, keep on processing. But the two that I'm actually working on are right here. Update solution begin and update solution done. And I'm just passing off to the music player and saying, here, go over there and play the music or stop playing the music. But I moved my options user control over here into my my core project, okay? And this is where this options user control, this is where I'd love to get your help cleaning it up. Let's make the user interface look nice. If you want to send me a pull request to help clean up this user control, you don't need to have Visual Studio installed in order to work with the user control there. It's just a Windows Forms user control. I'm going to leave that to you folks if you want to help out and clean that up for me. And I'll give you some credit here, of course, on the stream and on my blog for helping out with the project, and of course in the project as well. But this user control is very simple right now, and it just has a text box with a button that loads a file dialog so that we can open and choose a file to play. But I was running into all kinds of issues, and I was tripping over myself setting the state of these controls. So I wanted to write some, and it was suggested that we write some unit tests around it because it feels bad not having unit tests around these things and having to build and launch Visual Studio just to make sure this thing works. So I started off with a test called initialize given no music selected, and I created one right here called should check the default music checkbox. So I did some refactoring so that inside my option page, so the option page is the actual dialog page object inside of Visual Studio. This is inside my extension project. This implements an I build music options interface, and that is what I'm now I've lost it. That is what I'm now testing with. I'm passing that I build music options into my user control, and that's what I'm using to set and interact with the controls on the page, right? And also to receive inside this interface, to receive my list of during build music. Now, if you've looked at the project, you know we want to do all kinds of other cool, fun features here around the build process. Not just build, but gosh, other things in Visual Studio. And I'd love to get your feedback as to other fun things we'd like to have Visual Studio do. My friend Suze Hinton had suggested way back in one of our first streams that it'd be great if fireworks went off or confetti rained down when you had a build that ran successfully. I think we may want to have that run successfully after a certain amount of time, because a 3-second build that fires confetti might be a little annoying. But so for right now, I just have this one property in here because it's a very basic feature that we have inside the project. So I have my test explorer over here. I'm going to run the test and make sure that that it is running properly here before I start doing any more refactoring. And I know I have some friends out there that work for control vendors. I used to work for a control vendor that have Windows Forms controls that we could use to make this look really cool inside the project, but I don't necessarily want to use them in this open source project because I don't want to trip over any licensing issues for right now. So my test passes, and just to make sure that I get a really good feeling here, I'm going to start the live unit testing feature of Visual Studio so I can have this running in the background as I refactor and try and drive this into a simpler, smaller application. All right. And, come on, we can see it running in the background over here. See? There it is. And we should start seeing some markers appear here on the screen indicating what tests it's actually run here in the background. So I'm going to hide the Test Explorer because I should start seeing those indicators appear here. And running tests completed. There we go. Now I've got my green checks showing that the tests have run properly. So I'm going to go back over to my user control, and the first test that I ran really went through over here. So this checked changed. It executed that, but I wanted... Here it is. Set during build control, right? I mean, I executed a lot of code here in that test, but really I wanted to make sure that the default music checkbox, when initialized, is not checked. If it's empty, if there's no music selected. I should also do a check to make sure that if there is a different value, if there is a value set in there, that it's not checked, right? We want to do the flip check on that as well. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste. Somebody told me that this was that copy and paste is a developer's best tool. Okay. All right. Actually, this is given no music selected is the name of this fixture. So I'm going to add another one here. Public class given different music selected. And I'm going to mark this as a test fixture. Okay. And then I am going to control period on this and move it to another file because it's different. It's a different file. It's a different test that I'm setting up, and a different set of scenarios that I want to verify. So, given different music selected, and let me copy in my other setup code that I have here. And I've got a bunch of ugly. Namespace cannot directly... Oh, I pasted it into the wrong location. My bad. It needs to be here. There we go. And let's do a control period to get some of my using statements fixed. I'm using mock, M-O-Q, as my mock tool here. And there we go. All right, I've got all my using statements. Now I need to set up that I don't have empty build music options. I've actually got a selected. So I'm going to call this, instead of empty, full build music options. And I need to actually set something there for it. So let's say full build music options dot... I'm going to set up as a property. I have to actually specify now the property. So I'm going to say, during build music. So now what I should be able to do, if I remember how to use mock properly, I should be able to say, not default value, object dot during build music equals some other dot mp3. So now I'm setting that during build music to something else. And now this test should fail because there it is, because it's something else, and I'm checking to make sure that the default music during build is true. It shouldn't be true. It should now be false. But before I set that to false, I'm going to change my message here. Music was selected, but the checkbox was checked. Okay. Now let me change this to is false. And I should have my build come through, and right, it should flip those red X's to green if the code works properly. Okay, it does. So I've pinned down that functionality. I know that it works properly right now. So if I start to move things around inside my user control, I have verification that it's properly setting the state of the user control. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So let me go over to the user control, and right, this state management here just feels really, really bad. Now I can start to act on it and interact with well, not interact. I can start to try to simplify some of this. So initialize the during build controls. Right? So these are the controls that trigger the music, that control the options around the music that'll play during build. Wouldn't it be nice if there was information about that? Initialize the controls that define the music that will play during build. All right. Now I don't need to keep saying that. All right, so default music during build. So I do this string is null or empty to check and set this property down here that just listens and reports on the status of the checked property of my checkbox. So that looks set during build control state. Okay. Now this is setting the state of the text box. So if you do check the default music, we want to disable the buttons around the text box and the open button, and I think that's okay. So I don't think there's too much that I can do there. The checked changed. So when the checkbox does change state, set during build control state to not that checked. You know what? I'm going to change this. So it goes to default music during build. Let's not work directly with that checkbox. Let's work directly with this property. No, wait a sec. No, you know what? I'm inside working with the checkbox. I'm okay working with the checkbox. Yeah, I think that's right. If it is checked, clear out the text box and persist music collection. You know what? I think this check as to what to put in the text of it, this should be over in the set during build control state. Yeah. So let's do that. I'm going to move this. Wrong method. Up here. So let's say if okay, so if not state, and I don't like state. That feels right, so the text box is enabled. Right now I've got it. Now I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I've got a logic. This is confusing to me. Right, if I could I need to make that variable something a little bit more explicit. Equals not default music? Does that make sense? So if it's not default music, then we're going to enable it. That feels bad too. I don't like having a variable named not something. So let's flip this around. And let's make this, I'm going to F2 that so I can update everywhere. Let's just make this default music, which means that everywhere that I'm calling set during build control state, and I'll click my references here, I'll grab this. So now instead of that, I'll make it, and then I need to put not in here. So if I am setting it to the default music, I should disable, right, the text box and disable the button. Okay, good. And what's the other place that that's referenced is here. And I can change that. All right. Now, okay, so if I want to empty the text box if default music. Yeah. All right. Custom music. Shouldn't a bool be something like is default music? Okay, let's make it is default music. I like that. I can work with that. Thanks for the suggestions. Now, I don't have a test. I don't have a test around, right? I mean, it is testing these only because why is it how is it testing that? Initialize during build controls. It's not actually calling this. So how is it? I'm confused. How is it calling into this during my two simple unit tests? Oh, because set during build control state is right here. Well, you know what? Let's test to make sure that it's setting. Let's test to make sure that it's clearing the text box appropriately. So, given no music selected, let's add one more test. And let's say should empty default music text box. These are very granular unit tests, I know. But the default music text box had content. All right, so we're initializing, and we want to check. So how do I check the content of the text box? I need to expose that as a property. So let me go back over here. Let's create a property to expose the content of that text box. So public string other music during build, right? And get will be the music during build text box text. I gotta return that, don't I? All right. Set means that during music during build text box text equals value. That's better. All right. So now I can reach in and I can actually, you know what? And I shouldn't have this set be available outside. All right, so control other music during build. I don't want it to be an is true. I want it to do a test for string is null or empty. Is empty, I think, is a test against a... Oh, no! Assert so that a string is empty. Yeah, there we go. I thought is empty was a test against an IEnumerable. Okay, let's see how that works. So I'm just going to let the test run, and it is, I am properly clearing it out. During initialize, we should also check to make sure that it's being populated. if there is a different setting in there. So let's copy this and go back over to different music selected. Paste that in. Should set default music text box. And I already defined it as some other MP3. So I have a different name for my options here. Music was selected, but the text box had no content. Okay. And it's not an is empty. Right? It's a is there an is not empty? Ah, there we go. So I am using NUnit as my unit test for those of you who haven't joined me before. Good, so I've got a good unit test that verifies that is set properly. So now I should actually use this to set state during my initialize. Where's my initialize? Initialize during builds. So I shouldn't set that text box. I should actually set this property, because if I move that text box, if I rename it, I'll have it all in one place. So I will just say that, wait for my unit tests to run and make sure that everything comes through green checks. Looks good. And I can also look on Test Explorer. The live unit tests update the content of this as well. So all my tests are still running properly, and I'm feeling a little bit better because I'm moving away from how these things are working. You know what? I should have that up here. Other music during build, and that's right. That's during my initialize. Make sure that sets properly. There it is. Good. So my initialize isn't actually touching controls. And I feel like I did it again here, where I'm over optimizing. I'm clearly working with controls here. I feel like I should. I feel like I should have this touching the actual text box, because I am referencing the text box there. Let me change that back. Okay. And I should test this directly for when that flips, but I feel like I'm already doing that through the initialize. So I'm okay there. Coming down here, music during build, open button, click. So this is the button to set up and trigger the file dialog. I don't think I need to test this. And the file OK coming out of it, I don't think I need to test that either. It's strictly a user interface concern. The text box leave, persist during music selection. Well, I think this is one that I may want to get into. Let me look at persist music during. Okay. So this is where I'm actually saving off back to the options page, which is my interface. So I should try to trigger this. Now, if I made it internal, I could trigger it directly if I made my internals visible to my test project. And I think I'm going to do that. Right? Because the other way, right? Where is this called? It's called in 3 places. It's called, of course, on line 88, 104, and 112. Ugh. Default. Okay, so when the checkbox changes, and it's down here, when I leave the text box, and it's also when we exit the file dialog. So I could trigger one of these methods directly, but they're private. I don't want to trigger those directly. I feel like I want to make this internal. What do you guys think? Is it a code smell if I make this internal and then I expose my internal objects to the unit test project? Is that a code smell? Am I doing something bad there? Is that something I should avoid? just going to check Twitter and see if there's any comments over there. Yes. Yes, it's good. Yes, it's a code smell. What do you think? Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay between my broadcast and the chat room. So I'm seeing yes and wondering, what are you saying yes to? Shouldn't expose internals. Yeah, I know. But I'm only exposing it to the test class. Right? LOL. Yeah, it'll make you feel good. Right? Let me show you what the trick that I pull here. I say internals visible to, and I would say test. Right? Which I should probably add more to the definition of it, because test is really generic name. Right? And then I want to say true. What are you upset about? Does not contain a constructor. It takes 2 arguments. Bah, humbug. Get rid of that. Friendly assembly reference test is invalid. Strong name assemblies must specify public key. Oh. Fossils. I'm feeling peer pressured. Sorry. Mud Diver, nice to know I'm not the only one in conflict about how I expose internals to a test. I bounce back and forth, and I don't like any of the ways I do it. I completely agree. I can't do it. So what's being told here is because Visual Studio extensions are strongly named, I have to strongly name my unit test project in order to be able to reference it and do internals visible to. So that feels bad too. So I'm not going to do that because I really don't want to deal with all the nonsense around strongly naming. Yeah, you heard me. I'm on the team, and I'm not a fan of strong naming. I understand why we do it. It's a pain in the neck. So I'm gonna stop thinking about that. Let's think about what can we do with this persist music during selection. I mean, if I flat out made this public, anybody could call it from anywhere. I think I'm okay with that for right now. I think. Let's see. Mud Diver writes, I think of unit tests as a form of a user interface, so I try to expose units of work like I would to an outer layer module like a user interface. I agree. That's a great way to think about it, Mud Diver. And that's why I'm looking at this and thinking, well, this is an internal consideration. Do I really need to make it public? If I'm making it public only for testing, am I doing too much? Is that right? Do I not want to be doing that? Feels... I'm going to run with it for right now. I think I'm going to run with it for right now. Yeah. Let me create another folder here, because I'm not initializing now. I am some other state, right? So let me add a folder. This one, I'm not initializing. I am... and even then, I shouldn't call this just initialize. I should call it like initializing options. Let me call this saving options. Yeah. And let me rename this like that. But that also means that these things, right? They have the wrong name here. I'm trying to control dot on this, and it won't let me rename the namespace. easily. So I'm just going to have to go through and rename it by hand. That's not too bad. Move the cursor there so you can see. So that feels a little bit better around what it's doing. So now let me add a new class over here. So and I'm going to inspect really what's going on inside that persist. So given default music selected, default during build music selected. Okay. Give me a thing there. Put a public here. This is a test fixture. Control dot. Put in my using statement. I did a Control A, Control K, Control D to select all the text and format it all. So I get the tabs that I'm used to seeing. So test.saving options, given default during build music selected. Now I'm going to start setting up my options and my test here. And I want to use a similar setup that I had over here. So I'm just going to grab that setup, paste it in here. So I have a mockery. I have my build, let's start with empty build music options. I'm going to bring in these other objects. Good. So in my setup, I have empty build music options. You know what? Let's make it actually. Let's just change this from empty. Let's just call it build music options. And I'm going to set up. What is it? Property. Yeah, set up all properties. Sure, go for it. Jay Burgard, 1, now following. Thanks for joining us, Jay Burgard. Jay Burgard? Am I saying that right? Thanks for joining us. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoy watching the stream. All right. So, oh, and I see you're following me on Twitter too. Cool. Thank you. Let's see. So I'm setting up all the properties, and just to make sure that I have a setting in there, and that I can tell that it's set it to something else, that it's cleared it out. Let me go on the object here, and the during build music. Let me set this to something already set .mp3. That's not really an MP3 on disk, it's just another value so that I can see it there. Alright, so let's write a test. So, given default during build music selected, I want to make sure that so given when then. So, given during build music selected, then it should save it properly. So public void then should clear during build music. Right? My 3 A's, I need to make this a snippet. Arrange, act, and assert. I always put these comments into my unit tests so that I can logically keep these considerations when I write a unit test separate, right? I want to always arrange my test and then act, perform the test, and then assert, check to make sure that the proper things happened. Ah, cool. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you joining us. So as you can see, right, all the chat is going to be burned into the video up above me here. So don't say anything you don't want to pop out on YouTube and other places that I republish this video. All right, here we go. So next steps. So I've got the music there. Arrange. I want to set the checked status of the control, right? So I need to go into the control and the default build music during build. I want to set that to true so that the checkbox is checked, right? And the management of that. And then I want to actually act, right? I want to call that persist method. So control dot, and can I access the persist? Persist the during music selection. And now I can do my assert. Assert dot is empty. We saw that works. And I'm going to check now my build music options. Object during build music. And if it's not empty, did not clear out the during build music setting. So that's verifying that the persist properly cleared it out. Just going to let that run real quick. Cool. And it looks like the stream's holding steady over... Uh-oh. All right. I've done something wrong. I've got a bunch of red X's. What did we break? What did we do wrong here? So let's see where the red X's hit. So I'm over here on my user control. Well, there you go. Persist music during selection. I never went past the is initializing check because I never... Did I call initialize? Did I call initialize? So I set up the control, but I never initialized it. I never actually passed in the settings. Now wait, did I miss that on my tests? That was my first act in the tests. Okay, so let me initialize. See that? What was that? All right. So let's initialize, and I need to pass in my iBuild music options, which is build music options, object, and wait a sec. See that? Distraction. And I've still got an extra parenthesis there. There we go. Come on, unit tests. I feel like I also should have fireworks and things when tests all run successfully. That'd be kind of cool. Or a celebrating trumpet or something. So why am I getting red X's now? Let me go back over to here. And if I go down to persist during music, cool. So check it out. So I am getting red X's. So during it is checked, and I've got a red X here. Option page during build music is trying to set it to the default file name, and it's coming back as an X. So there you go. It's not empty. It's the default file name is what it's setting. Next project, Epic Test Music. Why can't we just hook this project up to that also? I feel like that's another set of options. I like the idea of making Visual Studio more fun, and I think we can do that all here in one extension. So okay, so I'm not testing the exact thing here. Where did it go? I'm not testing the exact thing here that I'm actually setting. It's not empty, but I want to make sure that it is equal, right? Yeah. So the default build music is the expected value is going to be music player default file name. I want to make sure that those are equal. And I should see that come through true. And there we go. Cool. And once again, I'm going to need the reverse, where it's not selected. Given other build music is selected, that it saves those values, right? Because if I look at my go away, not that one. If I look at my user control, I need to actually run these tests. Now, a file exists. I'm doing a file exists in here, which is actually a pretty cool thing that I'm testing to make sure that that file actually exists on disk. But here's the problem. I don't want to give it a real file name. Because if this is running somewhere like on a continuous integration server, I don't want to have an actual file on disk that it's testing to see, does this actually exist? Unless I just touch a file and write it to disk. But even then, I don't want to write a file to disk and say, oh, go look for that. Because that feels bad too. Now, true unit test advocates, I'll say, would tell me that referencing the file system is taking an extra dependency, and that you shouldn't reference the file system because now you have that dependency and you have to rely on that thing actually existing and being there when what you want is to run tests that run very quickly and you're not actually doing things like touching disk. So the suggestion that I might receive is do something to stub out the file system here, so that when you do call this exists, you can force it to say true when you're in a test scenario. And I think that makes sense. But that also means that I need to write a little wrapper here to go around it and separate the file system from the rest of my from my tests and my test scenarios. So let's set that up. Here we go. So I'm going to go into my core project, and I'm going to create another interface right next to my build music options. And I'm going to call this public interface file system handler. And I need to be able to check if a file exists, so let's just create a method called file exists and have it take in a string. That's the name of the file. And I'm going to move this to a different location. And I'm actually going to put in a default implementation there. And I'll just call this file system handler. And I will implement the interface directly. Yep. And all that I'm going to do is return file exists. Oh, I feel shame now. Because now I've got two things named file. I should probably call this like file to check. So I'm going to do a file exists, file to check. Just return that. Now I can go back over to my control here, and I can take in an file system handler, and I'm going to default that to a new file system handler. I need to give it a name, huh? Right? Is that right? Set it to a default value. Must be compile time constant. Oh, you stink. Let's set it by default to null. If file system handler equals null. No, you know what? File system handler equals and if not, a new file system handler. Alright, now I can declare this thing. Yep, generate that field. There it is. Okay. Now I can go down here to where it was doing that file check. Where was it? Did I pass it? There it is. So now I can say file system handler dot file exists. All right. So now all my methods should build and still compile and run properly because I made this an optional constraint. Cool. All right. So now I can go back over to my test, given default music selected. And I can turn this around and I can now do that file check on another test fixture that says it's not, that my checkbox is not checked. So I'm going to cheat again and I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and I'm going to say given other during build music selected, and to make sure that it does properly set this value. Hey, Organic IT, good morning from the left coast. Good morning. Great for you to join us. Gosh, where are you guys located? I hope you're not in the area of in the way of any of those fires there in Southern California. Gosh, I hope those folks are doing well. And as that's settling down, you know, the folks here in the rest of the country, I know we're gonna chip in and help out as best we can. So given other during build music selected, I'm going to now check the box and make sure that it clears it out. You're in Sacramento, about 300 miles away. Oh, cool. Great. Far enough away that things are safe. All right, so this I want to be, you know what, let's set this to that default value that's in my music player. So the default file name. All right. And now, I want to make sure that it actually does set some other value. So default music during build, I'm going to flip to false. And other music during build equals, and I made that a private set. So let me get rid of that. Excuse me. All right. The Napa fires blew us away. Oh no. I'm actually getting, look at this. I'm actually getting, you can't see it, but there was an alert box that was opening here on another screen. I'm going to call this some other build music MP3. So, it missed your area, or the fires got you, Organic IT. Everybody safe? So, while I'm waiting for the chat there, the unit test ran, and check it out. It's throwing the message box that I want it to throw when it ran. Oh, you're good. That's great to hear. So I need to fix this so it's using a fake file handler. So I set up my options here. Let me now set up that fake file handler. So I'm going to create a, let's call this a file handler equals, and we're going to create a new mock file handler here. What was it? File system handler. There it is. Okay. I'm going to need to control dot on this, generate that field. It's unbelievable to see entire neighborhoods wiped out, though. You aren't kidding. That is insane. And the video that we're seeing of those folks out there driving down the highway, and the entire side of the hill is just on fire. It looks like something out of Lord of the Rings. Oh my gosh. Just disastrous. I feel terrible for all the folks down there. That is what happens when you build homes in a tinderbox. Well, when you do build homes a little bit close to wooded areas that are going to catch fire, yeah. All right, I need to set up Now here's where I need to set up a method call and specify a return. This is a common thing that you'll see in using mock libraries. So I'm going to set up the system handler. So when the handler is called, when I call file exists, right, and then some file name, I'm going to first off, right, I want to return, I'm going to return true. Now, I thought there was a way to say ignore arguments, and I don't see it here. Check digits. They issued a no burn order here in the Dallas area. We're in a drought as normal for Texas. Yeah. Conditions in the country have been drier than normal and with a lot of wind. No welding equipment and so on allowed either. They're learning lessons from Cali. Oh gosh, best of luck to you folks there in Texas as well. Oh my gosh. All right, so I need to coming back here. So down here, I'm now going to pass in my mock file handler. And I'm going to return that object. So now it should, when it calls file exists, always return true, and this should actually run through and test properly. I've got my message boxes up here. I'm getting looking positive. Come on. Let me lock down those green check boxes. Here we go. So it's still showing me these alert boxes. All right, now I've got some red X's. All right. Let's see where it's dying out here. I'm going to go back into my user control. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to go up here. So it is going through the file exists, and it looks like it's running both and failing. That feels weird. So I'm going to put a breakpoint right there, and I'm going to debug this test and actually step in and see exactly what it is that I'm seeing returned there when that line is triggered. Because my file system handler should be properly executing and being passed on what's going on there. You're debugging a release build. Oh, that feels bad. Stop that. Let's... Come on. I want to change this. So the live unit test is running right now, and it's locked out some of these settings for me up here. Come on. Unexpected error detected. Yes, I know that. Remember, I responded to you. Come on, Visual Studio. Am I going to have to close my solution and rerun here? Reopen? Let's see. My cancel build isn't available here. Yeah, I'm kind of... There we go. All right. All right, so let's change this back over to debug. And now let me click on this and debug so I can see the state of those things. Excuse me. All right, and we should see it attach. All right, so I've got my orange bar down here, and there it is. So now I'm attached. So file system handler file exists. Right now, why am I not getting any of my my help here? So let's check this. I'm going to go to my immediate window, and I am going to... Now that's true.
right? And when I mouse over file system handler, yeah, it's not going to tell me what that is. I want to have it show me that it's, there it is. So you can see this is actually a mock. It's not a real file system handler, right? I've tricked my code into using this mock version. So now I'm going to step in, and it is returning true. So now I am setting the during build music equal to the value that's in the text box, and the value in the text box is empty. Well, there we go. Right? Because now when I step through that, that was correct. I think that was correct. Right? Given other during build music selected, then should clear it. All right, so I've... okay, so something else is selected. Yeah, no, I think we're okay here. So I'm not initializing. The checkbox is not checked. And I'm seeing it's going to look for some other build music. And this time it returned false, even though that's the mock object. You know what? I didn't set up my mock object to respond multiple times. Is that what I'm running into? I think that's what I'm running into. Let me close some of these other things here that I don't need. So, where is it? Setup. And I think I need to set this to... Yeah, I thought there was a repeat here. Right? And one overload. What's the overload? Is there like an options here? So I told it to return true. Yeah, I feel like I thought there was a way to set this to repeat this several times. Is it when? What does when do? When is checking a condition. Alright, so... Okay, no, I don't want when. I want to do setup. Right? Because setup says... Setup on the mock type for a call to a void method. It's not a void method. It's a Boolean that I'm returning. Yeah. Okay. But I want to specify that it can run that multiple times. No, I'm not calling the base. I'm not going to verify it. But I do want to return true. Yeah. And then how do I set this so that it'll do it multiple times? And I also want to ignore, right? I want to ignore my string. I'm blanking here on how I need to set this up, because it's clear to me that the mock is not firing properly. And it's been a while since I've used mock, so I'm going to go and reference the MOQ setup See if I can find some documentation on this. Sure. Right, so returns, and then I can return. Right, setup, do something, returns value. Or throws. Matching arguments, there we go. It is any string. I think that's what I want to do. Come here. It dot is any string. So that it knows to ignore checking against that string. And set up a property. Stub all properties, yep. Callbacks, nope. Verification, I'm not verifying it. I probably should verify that it actually is doing that test. Setup sequence will allow you to set up returns for different. Okay. Alright, I think we're okay. So let me come back over here. No, we're not okay. I'm still getting red X's. Alright. I'm going to put a breakpoint here. Let's remove the breakpoint over here. Let's see what it's actually doing this time. Now that I've turned it around a little bit. Why'd I click run? Bad choice. Shouldn't have clicked run. Yeah, I know. It's going to run through and I'm going to still get red X's. Yeah. Thanks. Real helpful there. Helps if we click the right link, Jeff. Alright. And so it paused the live unit testing. It's running through the standard test window, which is now hiding on me. That's okay. There we go. So let me check the during build music selection. I'm going to F11 into this. So it is not initializing. Is the default build music? It is not checked. Okay. So we're stepping through. So now it's going to check to say the text, some other build music, does that file exist? And it says true. During build music is now going to be set to that text. Cool. Okay. I don't have my test. Oh, now I feel shame. Yes, there's my end unit. What am I testing? Let's back up here. The original test, given during build music, there was music selected. I need a when to go with this. So, when I check the box, it should set it to during build music. When other during build music is selected, it should set this value, not the default value. So I wasn't testing for the right thing. Right, so yeah. Alright, I'm not testing for the right thing here. It should be this value here. So let's introduce, sure. Other build music. So what should be equal is not the default file name, but it should be other build music. And that's what it should be persisting back into my build music options. And, come on, give me some green checks. Fantastic. Alright, I'm going to move this into another file. Alright. Okay, I think we're alright. Right? Cool. All my tests are passing. Okay. Do you think there's anything else that I need to write tests against or that I could abstract away before I save and think about moving on to another feature? What do you think, chat room? The only other thing that I could think about refactoring is how I'm hooking up to the solution events. Because right now, that hookup to the solution events is very much wired. Right, it's wired directly in here. Right here. Right? Isn't there a gimmick, isn't there a trick that I can use to refactor and hook this up so that I So I'm trying to think of ways that I can refactor and move my music player playing out. Some way to have Visual Studio pass to me the exact event that is firing without having to listen and trigger all of these things. You know what? I'm not going to worry myself with that right now. I think that's a lot. I think we did a lot of refactoring today, and we've got a half dozen unit tests that verify that we are handling the checkboxes properly. Now, they've all got, some of these have the same name. Let's go fix some of those names. So here I am in given other during build music selected. Okay. Then should persist other build music, other during build music. Yeah. Okay. So that helps with that name. There we go. So I have two should check default music checkbox. So this is given different music selected. Should uncheck the default music checkbox. No, clear check. There we go. Should set default music text box. What is this doing? You know what? I'm running into this. I'm running into this little bit of. I haven't named things. I'm just short on how I should be naming these things. I feel like the given should be the name of the folder, and the fixture should be named when something. Does that make sense? That's going to be a lot of moving around. That. Do I really want to spend some time doing right now? I mean, I'm near the end of our time together here today, and I think, you know what? I think I'm going to pass on that for right now, and I think I'm just going to save. Let me check my test explorer and make sure that, yeah, my tests, the names, they look okay for right now. I'm not. Yeah, I agree with you. Check digits. Let's just leave it. But you know what? Now is when I know what I'm actually doing in these things. You know what? I'm going to feel bad if I come back and look at this and I don't know what it's doing. So let me rename these. So I'm going to, so the given is, let me see. Right, so the syntax that I'm looking for here is given, when, then. And I want to rename my test fixtures. So when well, it's in my test setup is actually the when some other music is selected. Let's change this to when different music selected. Here we go. Here's our thens. Should clear default. Should set default music. The given is, what is the given? Given the options dialog? Given the options dialog is initialized. No, given we are initializing the options dialog. Let me rename that. Given the options dialog. This class should now be renamed. This file should now be renamed. Yes. It didn't rename it. It didn't rename it. Rename file. There, that's better. And it should be given the options dialog. And I'm going to come over here. And this is when no music selected. Should check default music. Should empty default. Yeah. And let me rename. There we go. So I think saving options, these can both be moved into the same folder. So this is when saving options. So I'm gonna move these two up into here. Cecil Phillip, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate the follow, Cecil. I know Cecil down in Florida. He's one of my colleagues. I appreciate the follow. All right, so let me rename this. This is given the options dialog, right? This is given the options dialog. So then it's when default during build selected. Then should clear default clear during build music. Given the options dialog, when default during build music selected, then should clear other during build music. Yeah, that makes sense now. All right. And let me rename the file. Cool. Okay. Let me touch that last file over here. So I'm going to rename this to given the options dialog. Save that. This should now be when other during build music selected. Then should persist other during build music. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. So let me rename the file. Good. Save. So now, if I look at my Test Explorer, there is a way to change the view here. Excuse me. Here we go. Group by namespace. So check this out. Given the options dialog, oh, it doesn't include. Can I also group by class? There we go. So check that out. When default during build music selected, then should clear other during build music. That makes sense. When different music selected, should clear default music checkbox. Should set default music text box. When different music selected. Yeah, that's okay. Should set default music text box. This should be... Not, is it empty? Should, wait a sec. When different music selected. So we've set some other music. The other music during build is should set, this should be, should set during build music text box. Okay, and then when other during build music selected, then should persist other during build music. Yeah, those make sense. I think we're good there. I'm going to save this off. Just make sure that everything runs properly. I'll click run all one more time. And then I think we're going to be just about ready to commit and push things back into source control. I'm not going to tag this version yet. I think there's still more for us to do. I'd like to get in and do some work on the user interface before I publish this to the marketplace. Do some user interface work, get some artwork to it. So I think there's a little bit there that I want to do before I publish this, before I tag a incremented build here. So there we go. Tests are running. Show me all greens here, Mr. Test Explorer, or Ms. Test Explorer, whatever the case may be. Good. Everything's green. Everything's saved. Let me go back over to the console window, and we will clean up for the end of the day here. Get status, and it's going to tell me I've got some files that were deleted. That's okay. So let's add .core, my I file system handler. You'll remember I created the file system handler in today's work so that we could back out and abstractly reference the file system. A couple comments here. Organic IT, splash a bit of PowerShell in there for me. Fine. You got it. How's that? Is that a little bit better? Look at that. And I've even got the little indicators here as far as... this is PoshGit, I believe it's called, that's running inside of my PowerShell that gives us some indicators as to what branch we're on and then the changes that are currently in this branch compared to what's on disk. Huh? How's that? Is that pretty cool? Let me go back to my status here. Let's look at committing the rest of my stuff. Let me add the given the options dialog here. So git add test given the options dialog. All right. Let's see what else we got here. I need to add the delete here. It sounds weird, but you need to add something that was deleted. Test initialize given no music selected CS. Big smiley face from Organic IT. Oh, good. All right, git status one more time. Now I'm going to do a commit -a with a message. I'm going to say completed refactoring to unit tests that verify the options page. Cool. And now it's showing me that I am one commit ahead of my my remote. Right, and if I do a git status, you'll see my working tree is clean. If I do a git push those changes up to my dev branch, everything goes up, and I get the 3 bars here. Is that the hamburger indicator? I've heard some Americans call that the cheeseburger, and then my European friends, of course, say you Americans are so fat and stupid. That's a terrible accent of mine, but hey, whatever. Hamburger, cheeseburger, whatever you want to call it. It's a thing. Alright, so that's pushed up, so my dev branch should match over here. If I go back over to code, there it is, it's pushed up. And if I look at dev, I just want to make sure that it's there. I've got a whole pile of commits. That's a good thing. Now I could wire up unit testing to this, and the fact that I'm not dependent on the 4.7.1 version of Visual Studio, I think I can wire this up to VSTS. So if I can get the interviews working with Skype with my new hardware, I'm going to try and grab one of my friends who's an expert in VSTS, and maybe on Tuesday we'll do an interview and we'll wire this up to VSTS so that it's compiling and building out there, and I get feedback coming in indicating that it's building successfully. So I think this has been a pretty productive hour or two that we had together. Things are refactored. I feel much better now that I have some unit tests verifying that my options page is running properly, because I'm not a Windows Forms expert. Maintaining the state of that thing is just something that I'm not very good at, to be perfectly honest, and I've got a little bit more assurance that it's doing what I wanted. It's always a good practice to go through and do those. It's almost a code kata, right? It's practice to make sure that I'm writing unit tests properly and that they feel right, and that they allow me to verify that these things are working properly. So things are committed here. Of course, you can come up here and click on release, and you can download the current version. There it is right there. Install that, and you can play whatever MP3 you'd like during your build process. I'll copy off this video. We'll post it over to YouTube. I'll wrap everything up and post it onto my blog. Thanks so much for joining me. Check Digits says, I have forked the project. If I get time, I might play around with the UI. Go for it. Anybody out there that's listening or reading the blog post about this, I encourage you, fork this. Play with it. If you can make that user interface better, and in fact, I want to make sure that I get tab stops in here so that it's accessible, and that maybe we're using resources so we can localize this. Gosh, who was it? Bruno, you were saying you're in Brazil. I would love to get a Portuguese translation in here so that it's a little bit easier for folks who speak Portuguese to be able to see and work with that dialogue. That's great. I would love to accept a pull request from you with a quick and simple translation for just those few things that are there. That'd be great. Cecil joined late, but this is very cool. You know what? I've got a whole bunch of ideas where I want to go with this. I think live streaming is a great opportunity for us, for folks like me to reach out, speak candidly and directly to all you folks that are interested in our technologies, our products. And it's a lot easier for you to get access to me than having to travel to a build or an Ignite or a Dev Intersection event. I'm going to be here 3 times a week, at least 3 times. I'm trying to figure out if I want to do that 4th. Cool, Bruno, thanks so much for suggesting that you'll give it a try to send over some translations. Organic IT, is the YouTube channel C# Fritz as well? No, it's not. Thanks, Google. Google requires your YouTube channel to be the same as one of your Google usernames. So the YouTube channel is actually Jeffrey T. Fritz. If you go to, I think I still have csharpfritz.com, should still be wired up to my blog. Should. I still have the domain name. I still own it. Where is it? If I go www.csharpfritz.com, is that going to go there? Maybe not. If you do go to www.jeffreyfritz.com, pop in your channel description here if you can. That's a great idea. I will do that. I have a link here to live stream on the top menu on my blog, and if you click through there, man, that Azure sure is taking time. And there is a link to the playlist here and the channel over on YouTube. So whatever the latest one is will appear right here on this page. Gosh, I should clean that up a little bit. Trying to get that to work. And C# Fritz should work. I'm disappointed that it's not going there. What I'd really like to do is have live.csharpfritz.com come to this page where you can choose which provider you want to watch from. So I'm running into this challenge, and a couple folks mentioned this earlier in the week, that, hey, Jeff, Twitch is blocked at my business. I can't watch you during the day. So I'm also broadcasting to Mixer. I can also broadcast to YouTube and a couple other places. But I want to give you an option to jump off here and choose where you want to go. And that's not going anywhere. Gosh, I need to fix that domain name. All right, I will add that. I can even do that right now on here. Oh, it'll be very meta if I'm editing my Twitch TV page while I'm broadcasting to it. Right, that's going to get really weird. I'm going to skip that for right now. I'll come back and do that after the recording's done here. That's all that I wanted to focus on today. Did you guys have any questions? I've gone through and shown a lot here. I don't think there were too many questions. Do you have anything you want to ask about Visual Studio or .NET? For those of you that jumped on late, I added some follower goals here, and I'll add a bar up at the top here to show progress towards the goal. But I promise, if we get to 500 followers on the Twitch stream, I will run an 8-hour ASP.NET Core workshop. It will not be recorded, but if you attend during that time, you'll be able to watch and learn all about ASP.NET Core, how to get started. Cecil writes, what resources did I use to learn about building Visual Studio extensions? I actually used, there's a couple of articles on MSDN, because they reference Visual Studio 2015, the article, I didn't see an article about 2017, but I actually wrote a blog post here, funny you should say it, Cecil, called What I Learned Developing a Visual Studio Extension, and I have links to the articles that I'm using here, as well as links to the project. So here's how to set up, and my initialize, and here's the walkthrough from the MSDN site that I'm using right here. So there's a link to that, and some other links to the stream, some of the things that I learned I had to configure as I was building the project. So Bruno writes, you used forms. Could we have used WPF? I think you can use WPF, right? Because there's a way to swap that in. I'm not sure. I need to figure that out. Because when we do get to doing things, some of the more fun things like fireworks or confetti, I don't think that's something I can do with Windows Forms, and I'm going to want to use WPF to do that user interface effect. So I need to figure out if you can use WPF. I think, Bruno, that's a question that I think we're going to need to answer together, and I've got the interview gear set up just in time so that I can bring on somebody who's a WPF expert to help us go through and do some of those gimmicks here, some of those widgets on the stream. So I'm going to answer that when we figure it out coming up. Organic IT, I'm setting up .NET CI/CD for colleagues, and it seems like the tool is a bit unintuitive. Are you setting up the .NET CI/CD from Visual Studio, or are you going out to VSTS and set it? Because VSTS, I kind of agree with you. It's as somebody who's a developer first, and it's been 5 or 6 years since I set up continuous integration, and I used the oh, I see the other question there. I'll come back to that, organic IT. And I used Team City back in the day. So there you go, Chris. There's a JetBrains plug for you. I really enjoy Team City. Very friendly, very easy to use. I think the continuous integration, continuous development could use a little bit of tool tips, a little bit more description as to exactly what some of these advanced features are that are being lit up, because there's a ton of tremendous functionality in there. Don't get me wrong; it is amazing how much stuff is in there. And I sit back and I watch folks oh my gosh, I'm blanking on, like, Donovan Brown, just crank out integrations and build pipelines very, very quickly, and it almost scares me how quick he can do that. But he's amazing at how he can do it, but he knows this material cold. Newbies like you and me need a little bit more hand-holding. And I think there's an opportunity there to add some tool tips, some additional help text to help us walk through and get that experience. So I think we're going to have to walk through that together and see if we can do that a little bit better. Because my first experience doing it, and you can see that earlier on the playlist on YouTube, was really bad. It was terrible. And my friend Jeremy Lickness showed up, and yeah, he saw what kind of problems I was having there. So the previous ping, can I do some MS Build work at some time? Oh, you working through and configuring the build process in MS Build. Absolutely. I think that's a great opportunity with the .NET Core stuff to look at MS Build, because there's some great things that have been enhanced in MS Build and the build pipeline that we can take a look at and learn a lot from. And of course, when we refer to MS Build, we're kind of looking at the project file, which is this rat's nest of XML in its current state. When you're looking at current .NET full framework projects, yes, the live unit testing stopped. Thank you. This is a lot that's going on here, and we can talk about what's going on inside here and tuning this and making it behave a little bit better, adding some additional features, because there's definitely things that you can do in here to make it easier to understand. And I know there's folks who've gone so far as they shun the CS Proj format, and they use things like Cake, right, the C# make application to build their project. And there's other folks in the F# community that use Fake, and they use that F# make process to build their project. Organic IT writes, so many devs build straight for Visual Studio, and it's no good for me. You're right. When you get outside Visual Studio, when you are doing the continuous integration and you want to use MS Build, it's terrible. It's a hard thing to do. From Visual Studio compile straight to the bin, and the bin folder straight to the server. Yeah, that's not good. That, right? When we talk about continuous integration, we talk about continuous deployment. You're absolutely right, Organic IT. I want to be repeatable. I want to be able to do that build the same way every time. And in fact, one of the things that the folks on my .NET Framework team are working on is they're trying to put together a Windows Docker image that will allow you to run your build inside the Docker image and publish that out to either another Docker image or to some other resource. That way, you have a portable image that is everything to build your project. It's not just here's your Cake script or here's your MS Build, but you've got all those tools to do the build frozen in time with your Docker image that is configured with Windows that you can deploy and run anywhere at that point. Run it on Azure. Run it on somebody else's cloud. That's great. If it's running a Windows, because it's .NET Framework right now, because you're running inside of a Windows Docker container, you can build and output that without having to have all the SDK tools, without having Visual Studio installed. Gosh, right? Because that kind of feels bad when we look at VSTS right now. the build agents actually have Visual Studio installed. That's a huge install, and I'm not sure that's something that that you want to stomach, right? Inside somebody else's data center. There's licensing concerns there. You don't want to have to deal with that. It'd be much better if we could build and run from inside a container or with just the SDK and deploy. So I think that's, or a cut down version of the Visual Studio tools. You're right. Absolutely. And that's the way we used to do things. We used to install an extra version of Visual Studio out on a build agent somewhere, and we wouldn't tell Microsoft that we're actually running that. But I'm running up against the end of the time that I have here. Is there anything else you want to see me go through and do here around Visual Studio .NET Framework? I encourage you, tell your friends to come follow. Let me know what topics you want to see me cover here. Drop me a line on Twitter. You can see my Twitter handle up there, C#Fritz. I think I need to make a list. I like some of the feedback that I'm getting here in the chat room of some other ideas that we want to do. It sounds like configuring the continuous integration for this project is something we want to do. I'm tempted to reach out to my friend Syed, who literally wrote the book on MS Build, and talk to us a little bit about how we can make the build process for this project better. And of course, I want to do some ASP.NET Core here at some point. I've got some ideas for a sample project there that might be fun. But thanks so much for following. Thanks so much for joining me here today. Drop me a line. Let me know what you think. And if you can contribute to the project, send me a pull request. Open an issue out there. It is, let me click in and show the project one more time. So it is under C#Fritz and Fritz Epic Build Music. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll see you then.